Let's talk now, though, to Adam Michael Cox, because it is just after 12:30, and it's that time of the day when we do our homeschooling feature. So if you haven't done it already, gather your children around the radio or around the television if you're watching us on YouTube, or around the Alexa if you happen to be listening to it via that particular device, or around your phone, because there's an app where you can get it as well. Of course, you can listen to us online, so you might have a laptop. There's all manner of different ways of learning, and this is just one of them. But Adam Michael Cox is an expert in phobias, because we're going to find out what phobias are, and then maybe if you do have a phobia, what perhaps you can do about it. Adam, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So I suppose the first question should be, what is a phobia?
Yeah, a phobia is a emotional reaction to a trigger, a stimulus that causes intense anxiety. So for many people, they might have a phobia of an animal, like a spider or a dog perhaps, and just seeing or thinking about that thing would do things in their body which are symptoms of anxiety. So their heart might beat faster, or they might get muscle tension, or they might breathe really fast or cry. And it's an unpleasant experience, which is why so many people don't like having phobias.
Yes, I mean, I know people who have had panic attacks. I fortunately never have had one, so I don't know what it feels like. And it's when you've never had one, it's hard to imagine how debilitating it can be, right?
Totally. And, you know, when I work with people about who have phobias, I try and get a scale of 1 to 10 about how intense their anxiety feels. And for me, if it's 9 or 10 out of 10, I would label that as a panic attack, because, you know, it's such a severe, unpleasant emotional feeling, and people feel like they're going to die when it reaches that level of intensity. But some people have milder forms of phobias where they just don't like being around that thing. And lots of people might have a fear of kind of clowns, for example, and it's not that they're going to have a panic attack, but it just makes them feel a bit unnerved.
Just a bit uneasy, yeah. I mean, we've all had nervousness, I suppose, where, I mean, I've certainly had that, where you get that kind of tightening of the stomach and you have no appetite, you can't really eat anything, you can't really settle anywhere, you're worried about something which is maybe happening tomorrow or the next day, or something in the distance, or your relationship's messed up, and you have this sort of horrible knotted feeling.
Yeah, and that's a very typical. A lot of people say that the anxiety starts in their gut, and then when their heart beats faster, it kind of moves up into their chest. But it's something that doesn't happen by choice. And one of the most frustrating things that people with phobias experience is being told by other people that it's harmless, it's irrational. You know, they often already know that, but it's happening anyway. You know, it's really not a choice to feel that way. Yeah,
it's interesting. I was looking at the front page of the Times today, and I haven't actually read it, but in one of the pieces inside, it says how to beat your FOGO, which is a new thing. That's fear of going out. Because, I mean, I imagine that people now, having been locked down for 7 or 8 weeks, might have a fear of going out.
Yeah, totally. And you know, fears are created either from a sensitizing event or from what we learn from people around us, including the media. And if you've seen non-stop news reports about infections and people dying and things like that, then you might create a trigger of going outside equals danger, threat, you know, and therefore you're going to have anxiety around that. So, you know, these things definitely happen.
And how does phobias, or how do phobias kind of begin? Is there an event that happens that causes it? Like, for example, if you were scared of spiders, would it be because of some experience you had?
Yeah, strangely, the number one reason for people getting a phobia is they learn it from their parents or siblings. That's so they learn it from association. Right. The second number one cause is what's known as a sensitizing event. So something might have happened. So if you were young as a child and then a dog barks very loudly at you, that might create you know, a feeling that dogs are dangerous, and then you generalize that to all dogs rather than that specific dog. And that's what makes a phobia. It's generalized to everything that kind of falls in that particular bracket.
Okay. So then if you have, say, a phobia of flying, is there something you can do to fix that?
Yeah, so you have two main different types of phobias. You have simple phobias where you see the thing or you think about the thing and you feel it. And then you have situational phobias, which require an element of thinking or evaluation. And a fear of flying is one of those things that people don't necessarily only experience the anxiety when they're on the plane. Even booking the tickets or going to the airport can create that anxiety. So one of the key things is to focus on what you can control and what you can't control. So you might not be able to control the flying element of it, but you can provide distraction, so having games to play, having music, things like that. But generally, with phobias, it's about tackling the root so that you can think or be in that situation and not feel any anxiety. And most people don't realize that there is enough development within psychology and therapeutic approaches that these days you can get rid of a phobia in less than an hour.
Really? Does that work for everyone, or is there a one-size-fits-all, or does it depend on sort of how bad it is?
Yeah, it depends on the individual. I work with clients and get rid of phobias normally in one session. I'm kind of known for that, but sometimes it might be 2 or 3. And the results look magical from the outside. When I do workshops where people have a lifelong fear of spiders, at the end of it they're holding massive tarantulas, and it looks impossible, but it does happen.
Right. And what about as a parent, because people are listening to this who are homeschooling their children, how do you make sure that you're not somehow passing phobia on to your kids?
I think it's being aware that, children learn. If you think about the first language that we all speak, we didn't learn it in a classroom. We learned it just by being around other people. So actually, children are observing. So if you do have a fear of something and there are children around, it's definitely worth being aware of that, so that you don't scream or shout or look too panicked around them, because you could be accidentally giving them a phobia. Yes,
yeah, and that's certainly not something that you would wish to do. What's the most unusual phobia that you've come across?
So I actually worked with a champion cage fighter who had a fear of balloons.
Balloons?
Balloons,
wow.
Yeah, the idea of balloons popping. Some people have a similar phobia for fireworks, for example, loud noises. And he said, I've had to keep this a secret my whole life, because doing what he was doing, if someone knew that he had a fear of balloons, that could have been used to, humiliate or embarrass him or manipulate him.
Right.
And it's a very vulnerable thing to share a phobia, because unfortunately for the people that don't have that phobia, they can play pranks and they think it's funny because they don't experience the anxiety like the person that has it.
And so he would tell people that he had this phobia, would he?
No, he would definitely not tell people, because he was worried that it would be used against him. But effectively, his motive, and most people that have phobias simply avoid the thing. So he was avoiding balloons his whole life. But when he had a daughter and she was being invited to birthday parties, he couldn't actually go in with her, and it was creating problems for him. And that's normally when people see someone like me, where avoidance no longer is an effective strategy, and they just want to get rid of the phobia.
Because presumably if you're worried about balloons bursting, then you're worried about balloons, period. So if you see a balloon, you're gone. Yeah,
totally. And it's actually the anticipation that it may pop, more than the actual popping itself.
Yeah. And did you find out why he had that phobia?
It's likely to have been a sensitizing event where there was a very loud noise, perhaps when he was a very young child. A balloon pops very close to his ear and it startles, and that's how these things normally start with that particular phobia. But it really doesn't matter where it comes from. I think for most people, they just want it to go away, and that's where I can help.
We have somebody here who has a phobia of sponges.
Yeah, quite often that's less about the sponge and more about the holes. Trypophobia. So where honeycomb, for example, and things like that have patterns of holes tend to make people feel really unsettled, and then it's not a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? Well, it's fascinating stuff. Adam, thank you very much indeed. I mean, if you have a phobia and somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they do that? So I've got a free video that shows people how to get rid of phobias really quickly, and that's on phobiaguru.com. phobiaguru.com. Brilliant stuff. Adam, thank you very much indeed. Adam Michael Cox.